Hey everybody, Cliff Yates. We are live, the Cliff Yates Show podcast, but we're going live and we're looking at Los Angeles. And I had to jump on here. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, everybody. Much appreciated. Yeah, it's getting crazy down in Los Angeles, but I had to jump on today because I saw someone doing a live feed earlier, and they were doing a pretty good job, but I saw they were confused as to what exactly was going on, where they were, and who the law enforcement officers were. Now, listen, I can add a little bit of expertise here in this area because I did 30 years with the LA County Sheriff's Department, so all these streets and areas are very familiar to me, even the riotous situations, because I've been in several of them, and so this is nothing new. This could really be the aftermath of a LA Lakers championship game, but of course, this has been going on for a few days now, and so I want to shed some light onto some of the things that are going on. But if you have any questions, law enforcement or otherwise, please leave it in the comments section, and I will put it on the screen if I can. If it's not too vehemently negative, then I will... and I'll answer the questions that you have. But 30 years with the LA County Sheriff's Department. And so the other day, I think it was yesterday, these riots and the burnings and the protests were happening in the city of Paramount. Now, the city of Paramount does not have their own police department. They contract with the LA County Sheriff's Department. So that's why you saw LA Sheriff's Department handling that situation, because that was their jurisdiction. Now, earlier today, at one of the federal buildings, the protest was going on. Now, I know the federal building in Westwood is on county property, so we always handle the anti-war and whatever demonstrations are going on there. You would see the LA Sheriff's Department there, even though it was in the middle of LAPD City and in the middle of LAPD's area. But there's a lot of areas in LA where the jurisdictions cross or confused, or, then it gets onto a state highway, it gets onto the freeway, and then actually it becomes a California Highway Patrol. However, still in the city of LA, still in the county of LA. So all these agencies still have, obviously, full police powers, but there's a delineation of authority, well, not authority, but jurisdiction, if you will. And so I think things are going to ramp up a little bit tonight because of when we get to darkness, that's usually when the troublemakers feel more free to take some violent actions. But we're already seeing damage to property, and we've seen assault on the horses. The police. Now at least we have the police horses out there, which really assist in helping control the crowd. Now, it looks like we have. Let's listen in here on this news conference. Here we got Newsom's having a meeting, for God's sakes.
Other members of law enforcement gathered in Los Angeles just a short time ago. The governor posting to Twitter and citing joined LAPD, LASD, and state emergency officials in Los Angeles as we respond to protests provoked by chaos from Washington. We're here to keep the peace, not play into Trump's political games. And on the flip side of that, we hear from the President of the United States, who are calling those on the streets rioters and insurrectionists. Those are, this is, you can say what you will about the unrest and the violence. This is, it's hard to call this a riot. First of all, that we've seen some burning cars and we have seen violence, but LA knows riots. We have seen them, unfortunately, in our past. It's questionable whether whether this is a riot.
Oh, believe me, this is going to be a riot for sure. Now, when they talk about the LASD, right, LAPD, LASD, LA Sheriff's Department, they're talking about in one area where I know our men and women were gathered in their fatigues and ready for battle wear. I know the person that was doing a live stream was confused. Who are these? What are this law enforcement? It looks like National Guard. It says SRT. What police department? SRT. That is the sheriff's response team. So they were LA sheriff deputies, but this person had no idea. Let's see what's going on here. Maybe we can listen in Channel 7 right here at the freeway overpass.
One's calling this Democrat management. So who looks bad? He's saying that the Democrats. Another post. Let's check in on how the LAPD's management of the protests is going, and it's a car on fire. So again, the LAPD, Democratic leadership in the city, in the state.
Oh, so you see Alameda Street there, Union Station. I was actually stationed there before I retired in 2013, working as a sergeant for the Transportation Services Bureau. We handled all the subway, the red line trains, the blue line trains, the orange line, and also the city buses. We worked, and so Union Station is right there, and so we the LA Sheriff's Department had a station right there. And so many times I drove right by there, probably 2,000 times. And look at what they're doing. They're blocking traffic. And let's listen in.
Blocked for, I'd say, 3
hours.
Hours,
And the real danger here is that the northbound side to the left is open.
Right.
The people who are throwing these things off this overpass onto the vehicles below, thankfully, have not turned their ire to the cars that are moving by. That could change in an instant. It is abhorrent to see what they are doing. Looking at what the state of the 101 freeway is here, littered with scooters, a bicycle, debris, rock, cement that have been hurled off this overpass onto these vehicles below. But, you know, as bad as this looks, it could get even worse with those cars driving by on the northbound side. So how long this is going to be allowed to continue? There are vehicles under the protection of the overpass that are not being hit. Where are those officers?
How long is it going to be allowed?
Where are the CHP officers that
Probably
drove
quite
these
a while
onto the freeway who have now left them here? I don't think they can access them. They would need some kind of police escort to clear these people from the surrounding overpasses, because they would find themselves under assault, as their vehicles have been for hours now.
It's terrifying just thinking that looking at the damage on their cars, knowing that there could have been a police officer inside that unit when they threw that Lime scooter, but luckily, and we just saw something else get thrown at that vehicle as well. Luckily, we think that those officers are not there.
Right.
That street should be clear. There should be 300 people in jail, and then you wouldn't have any more activity there. Believe me, most people there don't want to get arrested. So after the first 25 go to jail, people are going to be gone. It's going to be a ghost town. But of course, as usual, it's going to be wait and see with the law enforcement there. I know. I've been part of it. We're held back, stand down, and look at this violence going on, and they have a green light to do it. And this is not allowed in other jurisdictions, and that's why it doesn't happen in other places very rarely.
The governor of California is moving for the president to rescind that order, and now the lieutenant governor says there will be a lawsuit filed tomorrow trying to undo that move by President Trump to federalize the California National Guard members. Again, from a PR perspective, who's coming out looking better here? The president says he wants law and order and is doing whatever he can to gain that, and says there are California National Guardsmen and women who are here who can do this. I'm federalizing them. I want peace. You have the governor and the lieutenant governor now fighting that order, obviously on grounds of legal challenges.
Right.
Both sides want peace, but in the eyes of the nation and the world, who comes out on top in that dispute?
Right. It's become a clash. Unfortunately, this has just become a clash of powers between not only
Look at this. No one's doing anything.
Level, but also protesters.
They're damaging the police cars, throwing crap, metal debris on top of the lawn. Just look at scattering crap all over the freeway, damaging police officers' vehicles.
Short ways away in front of City Hall. That is where a group
I don't know where you are. Let me know where you're at. Would that be allowed in where you live?
And benches and tables.
Probably not, but in LA they allow it to happen.
Gloria Molina Grand Park, which for some reason were not secured to the ground, and they are now in the middle of the road outside.
There it is, downtown LA, everybody.
Used as a barricade to protect themselves from an onslaught of less than lethal flashbangs and pepper balls that have been volleyed from the folks on the LAPD trying to break this up. We have not seen much movement here in the last hour in this situation.
The Hall of Justice?
And it appears there's a line of mounted officers that remains there at that intersection, just outside at the corner of City Hall there, and down the street, you can see those barricades that are being used. And as soon as we clear the shot of these trees, you will see those pink benches stood up on their sides. We have flags of various South and Central American countries being waved here. And it seems we have arrived at an impasse.
And yeah, looking at this, it makes you think that I think we had a very similar setup just about 30 minutes ago. So it makes you think that half an hour passed by and we are not seeing any progress really being made. Like, you're thinking, what are the police waiting for? Are they thinking that this is just going to play out? Are protesters going to get tired? But we have seen a very similar scene to this.
Yeah, this is going to get worse as it gets to be dark.
Hours now, and yeah, we just have those the chairs and the benches barricaded there.
So Spring Street,
go ahead and jump on there.
The steps of City Hall have now been lined with protesters. A short time ago, LA Mayor Karen Bass held a press conference just inside this building where these protesters were happening. Tim Caputo said you could hear the explosions happening outside. Let's listen into a little bit of
let's clear these people off the street. I just got to see how long they're going to put up with this.
Is chaos caused by the administration. People should exercise their right to protest. That's their First Amendment right. But people should also exercise that right peacefully. We do not want to play into the administration's hands. We're working with officials, we're organizing resources, but what we're seeing in Los Angeles is chaos that is provoked by the administration. When you raid Home Depot and workplaces, when you tear parents and children apart, and when you run armored caravans through our streets, you cause fear and you cause panic.
No kidding.
Deploying federalized troops is a dangerous escalation. But we need to be real about this.
This is the same mayor who took the trip during the fires, or right before, suspiciously.
And there is clearly no policy. I want the people of Los Angeles to know that we stand with all Angelenos, no matter where you were born. The First Amendment right gives you the ability, again, to protest peacefully. But it does not give you the right to be violent, to create chaos, or to vandalize property. And that will not be tolerated.
Well, it is being tolerated. We're seeing it live on television. We're seeing the metal poles of street signs being thrown down on law enforcement vehicles. People are blocking the freeway. Look at this mess. What do you mean it won't be tolerated? It is being tolerated. It's intolerable, the things that you're saying that flies in the face of reality. People, this is what they do, these politicians. We're watching what's actually happening live, and they're telling us a fairy tale. Let's go back to the fairy tale.
A sense of fear and chaos in our city, and you well remember a few years ago in the last administration that kids were afraid to go to school, parents were afraid to go to work. This impacts all of our city. You can't terrify the workforce.
Yes, they can. They can terrify the workforce. They're doing it right now. They're blocking traffic. Hardworking people that actually have jobs are trying to get home, and now they're sitting there for 2-3 hours or who knows how long, and now they're stuck. They weren't diverted off the freeway, and here's 10 police cars, in shambles, destroyed by all this mischief and damage. And it's still going on. I don't know where the police are. Are they having lunch? You're embarrassing my profession, everybody. What is going on here? I don't even know if I can listen to this mayor much longer.
Under the control of the governor.
And that was LA Mayor Karen Bass a short time ago saying this chaos has been provoked by President Trump and the Trump administration and their policies dealing with Los Angeles and immigration.
This chaos is being caused by the people blocking the street and damaging police cars and disrupting the regular movement of people and their right to move around freely. Nothing to do with the Trump administration, who is merely enforcing the immigration laws. And you, Mayor Bass, are interfering with that by saying that people are justified in obstructing justice. You are under arrest, and that's what I'm saying.
Pillow, given the force of what is now sitting in the windshield of that vehicle. What is that?
It looks like some kind of maybe a bag,
bag of
with
something,
like
yeah,
maybe a bag of rocks or some kind of heavy thing in the bag. But yeah, we see
You know,
the
that could be, we saw folks gathering things on the ground for a long time. It could be
The
they were
sticks,
filling up a
maybe.
bag, and perhaps here comes another scooter.
Oh, here comes a scooter. They're going to throw
I-
off the
I'm surprised
overpass
this has been allowed to continue
onto
for as
police.
long
Isn't
as
this
it has.
sickening?
You've
Look at that,
seen
highway
the
patrol cars.
size of those rocks. Here goes another
Crazy.
scooter.
They missed.
I mean, at this point, what does it matter? These
Right.
things, the damage is so severe on these vehicles that are just beneath the roadway. But I'm curious to see whether someone with a hammer is getting these rocks, because you see the size of the chunks of cement. And here we go. It looks like movement here. Okay, they have moved in now.
All right, we got some
And
people
we
moving
have
in. Let's
this
do something, people.
barricade with,
I want to see some
benches
action.
and chairs, and the LAPD is moving now through with those mounted officers. And the demonstrators who were gathered here for more than an hour are now being pushed back Spring Street. This is south down Spring towards LAPD headquarters, ironically enough. And you can see the steps of City Hall to the left. The green of
There is
Molina
no
Park
respect,
off to the
no
right,
fear,
and,
no fear of
the
consequences.
smoke lingers in
Just
the
smash
area
out
as
windows,
officers are working
throw
to,
metal
clear
objects
this
at police
area.
vehicles.
But just the fact that they took those benches and those chairs from Gloria Molina Park
Destroy
is just
public property
insane.
that the
It's mind-blowing.
taxpayers
And here we
pay
have the
money
remnants of it, I
to have a
believe.
beautiful
Looks like
city
law enforcement going in,
just to
putting
be
those benches
torn down by
they'll
you
be clearing
idiots.
that out of the road hopefully
Right.
soon. But
Let's
it's
go
just a
see what's
matter of
happening a little further up the road and with those demonstrators, because those mounted officers are continuing to move in. Again, another stretch of roadway that's just being reclaimed by the LAPD.
Let's stop pushing people back. Let's
where
put
will
the
these
handcuffs
demonstrators
on, get them off the street,
Exactly.
and they
Has
can
this run out of
reside
steam? It's been a
downtown
long
in
day.
the
It's been a long
jailhouse
weekend in Los
so that
Angeles.
hardworking
At
people,
what point does
taxpayers,
this
can
does this
make their
crackdown
way
on these folks
home or wherever they freely
It's
want to
going
go.
continue into the night, as we've seen the last two
This is
nights,
not
and
protesting.
seen
This is
unrest,
rioting.
confrontation with law
This is
enforcement.
breaking the law. This is
Once
criminal
again,
behavior,
we're at a
not
showdown
protesting, not
as
freedom of
LAPD
speech.
officers are,
Leave me a comment in the
standing
chat.
in
I see we got a
Spring
lot of people
Street. This is the middle.
joining
This is
in
the
here from
crossover
all over
from the park
different
over to
platforms.
City Hall. You see that brick walkway there in the middle, normally full of buses making their way through, and a lot of people. But tonight, the only people that are making their way through are the police and these demonstrators in the middle of the road.
And right now, I'm curious to know if these demonstrators are going to go. I mean, is there even anything left at the park? Can they go to the park and grab more benches and chairs, or are they just going to stand there now? And now that they are pretty much defenseless, is this where it's going to start fizzling down and we see some more progress made?
Fizzling down. There's no consequences to what they're doing. They're not going to fizzle down from their criminal behavior since it is being tolerated. And now when we get close to the cover of darkness, stand by. This is what people are doing out in the open. Stand by when they have some anonymity of darkness for cover. And then you're going to see some real action unless something is done. But, LA law enforcement, as I've said before, I was a deputy sheriff for 30 years. And it's going to be the command staff that's pretty much, unless they're forced into it, are not going to take action. It's going to be soft action. Got some flashbangs going off and tear gas, trying to move people around. Move them into back seats and buses and take them to the jail. Chasing them from one street to the next isn't working. Your police cars were trashed.
It looks like perhaps they were able to clear the overpass from below.
That's not a good spot for them to stand because these protesters are throwing fireworks directly at those officers.
Okay. Traffic continues to go by on the northbound side, and here you see somebody throw a firework down below, and then retreat back to the other side. I don't know what the fortifications are beneath this underpass, but these CHP vehicles have been here for hours. I assume that those officers that we're seeing now, that they have been beneath there this entire time.
Yeah.
We saw those who were arrested from the 101.
Oh, somebody got arrested?
On-ramp, and they were taken away. They weren't taken into downtown. They were taken down back onto the 101 freeway where those CHP vehicles were parked, and you assume driven off to detention from there. There remain some vehicles
I
and
didn't
the
see that.
officers that occupy them beneath
Well, that's
this
good if they
overpass.
took somebody to jail.
Hiking
Thank
under the
God.
Overpass. I'm more curious to know exactly how are they able to clear out the people that were on that overpass? Because we looked at it just about 10 minutes ago and it was packed.
Right.
We had so many protesters there, but so quickly they got rid of them.
Yeah, I don't know why,
And
how
I
they
think
got them
that's
off
when
there.
the
There was
police
hundreds.
felt safe enough they came out from under the overpass, but unfortunately they're getting fireworks thrown at them. But it looks like it has stopped. We have some more movement here.
Yeah, it looks like the airbags deployed in this from everything being thrown on top of it. So trying to get in here and access this, maybe just putting it into neutral. So
I'm surprised
I think his legs.
moving.
I don't think that officer is sitting there. I think they're kind of pushing on the gas pedal, perhaps, because that airbag is fully deployed. I think he's climbing under it, and you see him lifting it back up to emerge.
What are you
back from
doing?
the vehicle. So maybe putting it in neutral so they can push these vehicles out of the way, struggling to get the airbag out of the way, and another canister thrown, a smoke canister thrown from up above down onto the surface. So we'll see if this officer is able to move this vehicle again under attack. An onslaught of projectiles being thrown down.
I don't really like committing to things. I'm scared. But when Verizon announced that I could lock in a low price for 3 years, I mean,
We need to have some action taken here. Enough of pushing people around, tear gas and horses. We need handcuffs thrown on these people.
Surface of the 101 might have fired tear gas up above, because I don't
That makes
see.
sense why they dispersed so
exactly.
quickly.
I don't see any officers up on that level. Everything seems to be down, and here we just saw something thrown, and I don't think it made it to the southbound side. It might have fallen into oncoming traffic on the northbound side.
That's another concern. Yeah, the southbound drivers.
There you go. You can see something in the middle of the road that was just thrown. A couple things, cans perhaps, water, rocks, and here we go. So you see officers running because it's too dangerous to move slowly when they emerge from beneath this overpass. Just an unbelievable scene of CHP officers sprinting for their own safety as other officers step out to cover them as projectiles continue to be thrown.
I don't think they were running for their own safety. They're running back to get their vehicles so they can get to where they can get after these guys and gals. Or I don't know what they're doing actually at this point. With my police expertise, it's not even making sense to me with these. Of course, a lot of times what the CHP does doesn't make sense to anybody. Oh my goodness, what is going on there?
3 vehicles still abandoned by the CHP. 4 of them. We'll see if anyone is able to get back in there. The one furthest to the left has the airbags deployed. I don't know if that's drivable, if they can even move that tonight. But we see LAPD officers not too far away from here. They cleared those folks out from the middle of Spring Street.
I don't know how they got them off
All
Spring
this
Street. I
was
didn't see any
playing
tear
out.
gas going off.
Officers here from the CHP under siege from these demonstrators. And you talk about peaceful demonstrations. What we are seeing, that is not peaceful. The folks that are gathered on that overpass.
Yeah, this is not a peaceful
are
demonstration,
violent.
everybody.
They are not peaceful.
This is not protesting, damaging property, ripping signs out of the street and throwing them on an overpass onto police vehicles, right through the windshields of these police cars, damaging, assaulting. And where are the consequences? These people with impunity are running through the city, damaging all sorts of things. And the media is not helping by saying it's Trump's fault.
At this demonstrator just seems to be walking.
Yeah, just challenging them to do something now. So their protection has been taken down. You can see one bench there, someone, I believe, lying down. Yep, maybe with a skateboard as protection. So these folks just kind of taunting those officers. It brings up the question that Tim Caputo was asking earlier, and quoting someone else, would these folks still be here if the LAPD had backed off at this point? But, the violence kind of negates that question. As long as people are acting like this, the LAPD needs to stay here. And here we have officers on the back of this armored
That
pickup
almost looks
truck.
like a SWAT team, possibly.
That's sheriff.
Oh, it's the LA sheriff,
Or,
okay.
yeah, that's Sheriff or
Oh, yeah,
CHP, I
there's the
believe that's
team, man.
sheriff.
There's the home
Yeah,
team,
there's
LA
on the
Sheriff,
door.
everybody.
So those are LASD deputies in full. In
LASD
tactical gear.
says, we're not taking this
Full
crap
tactical
anymore.
gear.
We're coming down to
They
take
have
some
tactical
action.
Equipment on, and looks like reinforcements are now moving in as LASD.
All right, here we go. Let's see what happens now.
Are moving onto the scene here. Perhaps there was a call when those CHP officers came under attack, and that's why these guys are moving in. We'll see.
Maybe that's what it took. Like it definitely went a step ahead of what I'm sure a lot of them were expecting. Because yeah, we just saw those officers get attacked, running for their lives, and I think really you're right. That did spark them wanting to move in.
Yeah, the
So
CHP
traffic
must have
once
called
again
for
gathering on the
assistance, and
overpass.
you
I
know,
believe this
yeah,
is still Los Angeles
immediate
Street.
assistance.
And these demonstrators continue to volley concrete and bottles. There's a large chunk that just
Oh my
hit that
God!
vehicle.
Throwing chunks of concrete, bottles, and all sorts of things at these CHP cars. Of course, the CHP jurisdiction is there on the freeway, and everybody's throwing their projectiles from LAPD's area up above. So LAPD should be whooping some ass up there, and now we got people running, so something's up.
Moving in.
Maybe the
There's
sheriff's
still a couple
coming
blocks,
downtown.
They would have to be a couple blocks away from City Hall where we saw them gathering.
Yeah, it has to be either. Oh, there's some fireworks that I believe they threw, but possibly tear gas. That was a pretty large crowd. Again, we saw it clear out, but then that large crowd gathered again. Looks like it's clearing out, but I feel like it's just a matter of time before they come back. And I just don't understand, why are they throwing the concrete? The officers have left. There's 3 cars left. They're heavily damaged. It makes you just wonder why.
Why do you think they want to damage the police cars some more? There's no officers around, and so they can they freely do it.
Down of goalposts. You know, this is the kind of thing that people of a certain age just like to do. And I am generalizing somewhat. There could be some women, some females involved in this, and older people.
You got to be kidding
but
me! Look at all
generally,
these
we
scooters.
see
I guess those are city
in a
scooters that
gathering
people,
like this,
you know,
you
can
start to
take.
get a mob
You know,
mentality where
Yo, these were sold out.
these city scooters. They're just, you know, they can take them and throw them over the side onto these California Highway Patrol. Only in LA would this be tolerated.
money to replace.
Yeah.
Money that has been spent by our tax dollars to procure is now unavailable.
It makes you wonder, like, how much is the city going to have to spend now? This is thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage that was so unnecessary. And it looks like we have a little more.
Well, that's why you pay $6 a gallon for gas, so that you can have
northbound side
pay for
is
these
moving,
things.
Which honestly, I'm so glad that the northbound side is still safe as of right now. Looks like at least the demonstrators.
Look at these
have
people
left
still
alone, but
throwing
we're zooming
crap
back in,
with
into
impunity.
that police vehicle.
No
And it
consequences
has
to their
this
actions.
Bag, and it looks like there is a flame on that police vehicle. I can't
Yeah.
tell. Yeah.
Yep, that is now
And believe
on
me, they
fire.
won't be embarrassed by
We'll
this.
see if it catches or if it burns out, if it fizzles out. We've already seen 5 vehicles go up in flames, those unmanned Waymos that were lit on fire. So is this an incendiary or is this to extinguish? It was an extinguisher. Okay, good. All right, so that fire, nope, that is still burning. You can see it right on the
Oh, yeah, we got a fire on
windshield.
that
What
one
was
car.
The windshield is now kind of caved into this vehicle, and that fire is still burning. I don't know if there's anything to catch on that. I guess it depends on how much ingress it has into the vehicle itself, but if a fire lands just on a vehicle that's off on the windshield and the hood, nothing should theoretically catch fire.
Yeah, and just seeing this damage, it just gives you a glimpse of how upset and just frustrated these protesters are. And it just makes you want to tell them, like, hey, LAPD is not ICE. You know, why are you doing this? LAPD is supposed to be there to protect you. They don't like that they're in this situation either. Why continue this chaos? But it just goes to show that mentality. They're upset.
Right, and just a couple blocks away, we saw another crowd gathered outside City Hall.
All right,
as
everybody,
these
I'm
folks
Cliff
are
Yates.
gathering on this overpass and continuing
Retired LA County
to
Sheriff
volley
Sergeant,
chunks of
and I will
concrete.
answer any
Now,
police questions
incendiaries,
you have.
Scooters and bikes
Send 'em.
off of this overpass onto those CHP vehicles below. We believe there are still officers and other vehicles beneath this overpass. And we'll see how this plays out. We are expecting to hear from Loyola Law Professor Jessica Levinson. I don't know if she has joined us yet, but we are awaiting her to join us because there is quite a bit to talk about, constitutionally speaking, as you now have the governor of California at odds legally with the President of the United States. The President Trump federalized 2,000 members of the California National Guard, as we have said multiple times today, but we will explain it once again. This is not an uncommon thing for a president to federalize
Well, we got horseback coming in.
National Guards members. It has happened many times in our country's history. It hasn't happened many times even recently here in Los Angeles. Federal Guards troops were
We
deployed
have
to
a
help
large
out in the
crowd over
aftermath of the
here.
fires.
Right.
They were deployed in 2020 with the civil unrest, with everything that happened during that.
That's near Alvarado
eventful
Street.
year.
I know where that is.
But that's initiated at the request of the governor. The governor is considered the commander-in-chief of every state's National Guard, and that did not happen here. We have the president usurping the authority of the governor to take over California National Guards members and deploy them onto the streets of that city. The governor of California is now disputing that, asking, demanding, requesting that the president rescind that order and return control to the governor and the state of California. We heard from CNN reporting that
Oh, my God, look at
Lieutenant
this.
Governor Eleni Kouralakis says that a lawsuit will be filed tomorrow to try and overturn that decision of President Trump to federalize those troops. This has not happened in our country's history, at least in
Oh, my
recent
God, they're gonna
memory
blame
that I can
Trump
think
on
of
this?
Since the civil rights era. We're talking since the
Obviously, he
60s,
had to-
when there was pushback against civil rights advancements. John F. Kennedy federalized the troops.
Well, they had to federalize the troops because these people aren't doing their jobs.
In states like Alabama and others, when
Let's go, people. Do your jobs. You know, there's so many law enforcement in Southern California. I mean, they can bring in mobile booking buses. They can clear these streets. Listen, keep clearing them until the jail's full. LA County can hold about 30,000 inmates.
refusing to do.
Right.
In this situation, what is the justification to do this without the governor's request? So
Because he's
that
the
has
president.
opened up
That's why.
It's different, like a different part of history.
Yeah.
He's
that-
dealing with
One of the
federal law
questions that we would
enforcement, and
love
he
to
has the
pose
oversight
to
of federal law
Jessica Levinson
enforcement.
whenever she is able to join us. We are also awaiting at the top of the hour a law enforcement briefing with the LAPD. We expect to hear from Chief
Oh, look
Jim
at the more
McDonald,
fires,
and
more
LA County
they're gonna
Sheriff
try to light that
Luna,
car on fire.
who's also involved in these discussions, and we saw some of his deputies as we see these demonstrators lighting a piece of cardboard on fire. They are intent on burning more cars tonight. We'll see if it happens here that one of them is a CHP cruiser that has been under attack for hours now. Folks throwing chunks of concrete, scooters, bikes, and more onto these vehicles below. It was a perfect shot landing on the hood of that vehicle.
Man, was
Again,
that ever a perfect
Here
shot?
comes some
Oh, somebody's down there with a
fire
fire
retardant, a
extinguisher.
fire extinguisher to put that out.
Oh, and he's
I don't know if
undercover.
it
I
had
see.
much chance of
So
lighting anything on fire, but
That's
again,
definitely coming from under the overpass then. So there are some police officers still there then. That shows they're still there.
correct. And so we do also expect and hope to hear from the governor, who is in Los Angeles meeting with federal, local officials here, LAPD, LASD, and we believe that he will be speaking at this press briefing at the top of the hour. As we await that, as we await Professor Levinson, we continue to watch this chaos play out on the street.
Hey, everybody. Chaos in the streets of Los Angeles. I'm Cliff Yates, retired LA County Sheriff Sergeant, so I know these streets. I can give you some insight on this police activity. We get the CHP vehicles on the 110 there, right downtown LA. Look at the crowd along the freeway, and then we got these crazy rioters up on top, and I call them rioters. This is no longer a demonstration. These people are crazy. This is not a protest. This is rioting, damaging property, ripping metal signs off the streets, chunks of concrete, just destroying these CHP cars. Now, I saw a sheriff's response team there somewhere as a load of deputies and a response heavy-duty unit. I don't know where they went. That might be them right now. That's LAPD right there. Downtown, they're right near Union Station, Alameda Street. They're actually right near police headquarters. It's only about 1-2 blocks away. And there's a lot of law enforcement resources right there, as we see. And as always, in these circumstances, probably told to stand down, not doing anything. So if you have any questions about the law enforcement procedure and jurisdictions, pipe in. It gets kind of confusing. Sometimes there's a federal building. One of the federal buildings we have is in county area. It's on a county piece of property in the middle of city of LA. So actually the LA Sheriff's has jurisdiction. Yesterday you saw Paramount, the city of Paramount, who it doesn't have their own police department. So they contract with the LA Sheriff's Department. So that's why you saw LA Sheriff's Department handling that. There's a lot of LA Sheriff's deputies and units right there around Union Station where we handle the bus lines and the light rail lines. Right out of Union Station, we have an office right there, downtown LA, because we're right there where all the train lines come in and out of Union Station, and close access to the bus lines and the Metrolink trains come in and out of downtown LA. Let's listen in.
We have 8 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's try and fit as much in as we possibly can. First, what's on your mind as you watch what's playing out in Los Angeles tonight and the battle now between California Governor Gavin Newsom and the President of the United States?
So I think what's on my mind is what's on everybody's mind, which is what happens next? What happens overnight? What happens tomorrow? Will we see a significant escalation? If there is a significant escalation, or frankly, maybe any escalation,
you're going to see escalation when it gets dark, believe me.
I need to do more.
What do you think, everybody? When it gets dark, we're going to escalate, right? That's what nothing's happening. There's no consequences to this.
As I'm sure
these attacks on these police vehicles
Act would give the president more authority to not just federalize the National Guard, but to say that the National Guard can actually act as domestic law enforcement, that the military on U.S. soil can search, can seize, can arrest. That's not something that we're accustomed to. So I'm looking to see.
Well, that's what needs to be happening. Let me know in the chat if you agree. If this local law enforcement, they're not going to do there we go. Oh my God, look at the fire now. They finally got that CHP car on fire. Oh my God. And I don't know, they had some extinguishers. Well, maybe they can get it out. Oh man, there goes that CHP car. They finally got it. That was their goal.
Oh, it looked like it was some kind of ball of fuel, whether it was alcohol or gas, lobbed off of this overpass, and that CHP vehicle is now on fire. So we're having this conversation with these scenes playing out, Professor. We have heard the president twice within the last hour refer to the people, the demonstrators, and some of them violent and clearly breaking the law here, as insurrectionists.
I like it. Insurrectionists. Absolutely. And so if local law enforcement isn't going to do their job, which they haven't been doing their job, throwing some flash bangs and some tear gas and pushing people around on horses is not doing your job. These people have to, they're refusing. It's an unlawful assembly. That's a law in the state of California, unlawful assembly. You make an announcement, and if they still refuse to go, they are arrested for that violation. Unlawful assembly, and they're dragged off to jail. Obviously, the command staff is saying, well, there's too many people, and so, we're just going to control the crowd. It's not a crowd. This is a gang of misfit criminals that needs to be. People are going to do what you allow them to do. That's why they protest and damage and go crazy after these sporting events like at the LA Lakers. I was in one of those riots, and they were celebrating. They're going to burn this car up for sure. That's their goal. They're pretty persistent.
Like law enforcement officials, and again, perform searches and seizures. They cannot act like ICE agents. But if things continue, you asked me about the Insurrection Act. Obviously, the president has been using certain language today. What happens next? The Insurrection Act is an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. The Posse Comitatus Act says you can't use the military as direct domestic law enforcement. You can't have that happen, again, unless there are certain exigent or emergency circumstances. The Insurrection Act would present those emergency circumstances. So for me, the real legal question is, are we in a situation where the president can point to that broad grant of authority under the Insurrection Act and say, yes, we can move forward. Yeah. We cannot just have the national.
Well, let's see. I think he's going to be able to say law enforcement didn't do their jobs and manage law and order. They didn't do their job enforcing the laws and keeping the peace. And so he's going to have to take action and federalize the National Guard to get in there and take care of business. Somebody needs to take care of business. Why don't you join up with me? We'll go take a ride, and we can take a few people to jail, you and I, and we'll make things happen.
Saying it's going to be a successful suit. I'm saying they would have standing to sue. The argument would be that the president is infringing on state sovereignty because he doesn't have the power under the Insurrection Act. That when you pull the cord on the Insurrection Act, that you should have cooperation from a governor. Now, there have been, let's discuss, and you may have already discussed, moments in our nation's history where the president has said, I'm sending in troops. That was really about implementing desegregation decisions during the Civil War.
They don't need to send in troops if you do your job. We need to just take action. You got 3 major law enforcement agencies right here in close proximity. You got the LA Sheriff's Department, 9,000 deep personnel. LAPD, probably 12,000, 10, 11 anyways. And then Highway Patrol, quite a few in and around the LA area. I mean, you got probably access to another, besides your regular field force, you have, as was pointed out earlier, an SRT team from all the jail facilities, sheriff response teams, people. These people are trained in crowd control, mass arrest techniques. These people are all gearing up for the Olympics. So they should be well trained on these tactics that they need to handle the crowds. If they can't handle this, can you imagine the people thinking they're coming for the Olympics? What's going to happen?
Post a picture of himself with the chief of police of the LAPD and the LA County Sheriff Robert Luna, that he is in Los Angeles. He is working with those jurisdictions to see what is going to play out and how to best address the situation. But we're going to switch over some crews here as we get ready. So we will continue to cover. You'll still see this Air 7 picture of what is happening in downtown Los Angeles. Things calming down except for that one pocket over the 101 freeway where we see demonstrators continue to hurl objects down at the CHP vehicles below. But stay with us. We are not going anywhere. We will bring you that LAPD press conference here in just about 1 minute as we continue our coverage here on Eyewitness News, streaming and online for Eyewitness News.
All right, this is live coverage. We're commentating on everybody. I'm retired LA Sheriff Sergeant Cliff Yates. Leave look at, here we come on horseback. And I think they better start taking some action before nightfall comes, because that's when all the real action occurs, when they have the anonymity of darkness. And let's see how effective they're going to be. And we're probably going to hear from LAPD police chief and probably the sheriff, probably to come forward and say, yeah, I know, we're failing in doing our jobs. We're incompetent. And we, all we know is how to stand down, gather together. That's an LA Sheriff's helicopter right there, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is. That is one of our rescue airships coming in to take care of business, I guess, because LAPD is twiddling their thumbs and not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's why they're probably in a panic now, since Trump has sent in National Guard and threatening to kind of overstep the jurisdictions of the LAPD, LA Sheriff, and the CHP. We got the CHP cars there just damaged and beat up, continuing to get pelted by rocks and some kind of, man, look, whatever they're throwing, it's like it really causes a lot of fireworks around when they hit these vehicles. It's crazy. All right, breaking news, everybody. We're on Channel 7. We're checking it out. Protests turn violent amid ICE raids. Protest.
Day of protests over federal immigration enforcement operations. Good evening, I'm Mark Brown. Tonight we have seen protesters shutting down the 101 freeway, setting fire to Waymo cars, throwing rocks, concrete, even electric scooters against law enforcement vehicles on the 101 freeway. We have seen several people pulled out of the crowd and arrested by police. The remnants of less than lethal tear gas and rubber bullets littering the streets of downtown. And beyond what we're seeing on the group, another battle playing out over the Trump administration's decision.
All right, everybody, if you have any law enforcement questions, pipe in. You got a comment? I want to hear it.
An insurrection. We want to begin right now. There's a news conference that is scheduled.
Oh, now we're going to have a news conference. You don't need a news conference. Get out on the street and take care of business.
This is a key element of this, because one of the things that the president has been indicating is that local leaders, local officials, we don't know if he includes the chief in that. He has spoken about elected officials, and especially the mayor and the governor, saying that they are not responding to the protests in order to quell them, and that is why he is calling in the National Guard. The chief of police.
Exactly. That's why Trump is saying they're not responding to the protesters. They're not doing their jobs. And if these federal ICE agents are trying to get in there to do their job, and people are interfering with the free use and movement of the public streets, then that has to be taken care of immediately, if not sooner. And President Trump says, do your job, or I'm going to come in and do it for you. And now they want to sue in court tomorrow. Good luck. Shit's going to happen tonight. It's about to jump off here, everybody, because under the color of darkness, or the lack of color, under darkness, things are going to get worse unless they take care of business major. Look, we got a major movement along. Now, let's see if they're just going to push them around. They're going to take somebody to jail, get rid of the problem.
A pretty amazing day in Southern California, another crazy day of things happening. Let's go to Tim Caputo, who has been out in the middle of it for much of the afternoon. Tim, what do you see?
Well, Mark, you really nailed it on the head there. It has been a crazy day, and as the sun starts to go down, the concern, obviously, is things escalate from here. It's kind of interesting as you see the different layers. We kind of took a step back to get a broader vantage point, partially because the area we were on Los Angeles Street earlier was getting a little bit hairy. You could see down the 101 beneath us with all the overpasses and people on essentially every single overpass as police have moved in. Tommy, come to my right here to show these officers who have lined up on the street. We actually saw a number of sheriff's deputies come in on those big trucks with their tactical gear.
Yeah, come on, LA Sheriff, take care of business.
As they try to move this crowd or get
I'm sure they're told to stand down. Just drive around and look good.
Where we're standing is up on Hill Street. It gives you a vantage point of everything that's going on down below. If you look to my left here on the hill, this has grown throughout the day, and this is something that we've seen not just here a little bit farther away, but even down at Union Station as well. People are showing up. People are still coming out. People heard what's going on. People want to be part of what's going on, and so the crowd.
Oh, there's Union Station. There's all the rail lines that come in
certain areas, but in a lot of ways it's getting bigger. The folks up here taking some photo, live streaming, being part of it from a distance. As you get a little bit closer, you could start to see and hear where the fireworks are going off. The police department, obviously, both LAPD, the Sheriff's Department, and CHP, in a bit of a difficult spot because of the landscape here. You have the overpasses, you have the freeway underneath, and then you have the roads that go around the buildings, both Federal Building and City Hall, over on the south side of the 101. There is a lot of area to cover, and it seems as though, from what we've seen both down below and up here, as they start to move a crowd and it seems to dissipate, people just work their way around. They come up the street, they go around the street. So getting control here is almost impossible. So what they're trying to do is get things quieter, but figure out how to finally get this crowd to go home. I can tell you, Mark, from being out here on Friday night, from being in Compton.
We don't want the crowd is not going to go home. They're going to jail if you guys were doing your jobs. I'm speaking from experience. Retired LA Sheriff Sergeant Cliff Yates. Everybody, come on in, pipe in. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, law enforcement wise, I can answer them for you. I worked for 30 years. LA Sheriff Sergeant Cliff Yates, retired actually right out of downtown, right out of Union Station, where I was the sergeant for the Blue Line, Red Line, the Gold Line, and all the city buses. That's what the sheriff contracts with the bus people in LA, and they handle all the light rail lines. And so that's why this area really is the most accessible by many different police agencies to take care of business here. And I think that's why the president says, I got to take care of business because these people aren't doing their jobs. Little do they know that's actually how it's mostly handled around Los Angeles. People start rioting and gathering and breaking stuff up, and the command staff is giving the orders to, let them break it, let them break the stuff, just hold tight, don't let them advance any further. But no law enforcement action. And so, they're used to this, being able to come in to downtown in mass, knowing, well, agencies are too overwhelmed to take any action. If it was just one of us, we'd be dragged off to jail. But now that it's 1,000, everybody has to stand down and watch the chaos, destruction going on. So let's listen in and see what's happening.
The other vehicles, they appear to have been able to.
I don't really like committing to things.
We got a commercial there, so we're going to talk a little bit about law enforcement Listen, one of the reasons I piped in, I mentioned it earlier, is because people were commenting, who's that? Who is that agency? SRT. I don't even know what that stands for. Sheriff's Response Team, people around the county they're specially trained to handle large crowds and mass bookings and all the things that are associated with riots and demonstrations. And they take them from different units from all over the county, and they all cross-train together so that when they're alerted that they will be responding on the SRT team from the LA Sheriffs, then they're ready to roll, and they're all been trained in the same procedures. And but that's what the SRT team is. But whoever I was watching earlier on a live stream, they didn't know what they were talking about. But I know what I'm talking about. So if you have any questions, pipe in. I'll answer them. Law enforcement comments, you can do it. Don't be afraid.
Professional Standards Bureau, and from Operations Central Bureau, Raul Jovel, who's also the incident commander for Central Bureau and for this incident. So I want to just take an opportunity to speak directly to the people of Los Angeles, clarify LAPD's roles and the events that have been playing out over these past couple of days. This includes our response to protests, our public safety responsibilities, and recent claims that you've seen made by some federal officials. Today I met with Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, U.S. Attorney General of the Central District of California, Bill Aseli, and ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons. Let me begin by reaffirming a core principle. The LAPD supports and protects the First Amendment right to free speech. In recent days, many protests across the city have been peaceful, and we thank the community for expressing their views and their frustration in a responsible manner. However, when peaceful demonstrations devolve into acts of vandalism or violence, especially violence directed at innocent people, law enforcement officers, and others, we must respond firmly. An act of violence, whether toward officers...
Well, firmly, when are you going to do it? I don't know when you're going to take some action. I don't see too much firmly going on.
Everybody's right to safety. Recent public statements have misrepresented LAPD's action from an incident the other night. Specifically, there was a claim that LAPD delayed responding to a federal officer's request for assistance by more than 2 hours. When we heard that, I think anybody who's a police officer couldn't believe it, and certainly anyone with LAPD couldn't imagine how that would happen. Well, it didn't happen, and I just want to go into that just a little bit. LAPD was not given advance notice that the federal operations would occur in that area, As a result, we were not pre-positioned to respond immediately to unrest related to those actions. Once the call for assistance came in, LAPD responded within 38 minutes. And that sounds like a long time, but I'll tell you why that is. The response was impacted by traffic, crowd density.
38 minutes requesting assistance. Working for the LA Sheriff's Department, if someone called for assistance, I mean, I work South Central LA, and if I called for assistance, help came within about 30 seconds at the most. Not just routine backup, but if you call for assistance, people are coming hell or high water. 38 minutes? Yeah, that is a long time, Chief. Matter of fact, it's too long. People would die in 5 minutes.
Or coordinate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement on civil immigration enforcement. We've said this over and over again, and I can't stress it enough for the people in our community who have high levels of anxiety about this issue, that we want everybody to believe and be able to call the LAPD in time of need if they've been a victim of a crime or a witness to a crime. We need that. Otherwise, the system does not work. That has been our policy and remains our policy.
The system doesn't work
It went into effect
at all,
in 1979.
anyways, obviously.
So 46 years ago, that's been the way we do business. On the other hand, however, when a law enforcement agency, any agency, requests emergency assistance to protect lives,
We'll be there in 38 minutes to help you.
Respond, and we do. Public safety is our duty, and we will answer every legitimate call for help from anyone. We recognize that immigration enforcement operations can cause a deep fear and anxiety, particularly in immigrant communities. That's why we're committed
especially
to
if you're illegal.
accountability.
That would give you some anxiety, wouldn't it?
With respect, regardless of their immigration status. Our job is not to divide communities or to politicize law enforcement. Our job is simply to keep everyone safe. I want to express my sincere appreciation.
Well,
to
you're
all
not
of our
doing it.
officers and partner
Obviously, I'm
agencies
looking
for
at
their
people that are not
dedication and
safe.
Professionalism during these very challenging times. Their commitment to upholding the law, even in the face of hostility, is a reflection of the values that we stand for.
Look at these fires.
We're
People
working
are setting
together to keep
fires
everyone
all over
safe, our
downtown,
officers and the public
throwing
alike.
chunks of
And
concrete
this remains our top
on
priority.
police officers
We'll continue to support peaceful protests and enforce
and their
the law
vehicles.
when criminal acts occur. The LAPD remains focused on its core mission.
All right, we got some
to
stick
protect
time
lives,
going on here.
Safeguard constitutional rights, and serve every neighborhood in Los Angeles with integrity. Let me open it up now for any questions you might have or
Let's
any
get rid of the
points that we
chief and get back to what's happening down on the street.
Another sunny day in paradise.
We need to know what's going on the street. We don't need to be at the news conference, everybody. Hey, listen, I'm retired LA County Sheriff Sergeant Cliff Yates. We are watching live the rioting that's going on in downtown LA. Yeah, they're blocking the streets right now. They're throwing heavy pieces of concrete on CHP cars that are unoccupied. They've pretty much damaged them beyond recognizability, really. One was finally lit on fire to the point where it was burned up pretty good. And right now we got Jim McDonald doing a conference talking crap, trying to explain why when federal officers asked for assistance, it took them 38 minutes to get there. And he's trying to claim, based on the circumstances, that's not too long. And I'm telling you, as a cop in L.A., 30 years, when I worked downtown in South Central, if you requested assistance, 30 seconds, you'd have 6 cars there ready to help. 38 minutes, and he's trying to kind of softball that as being normal. Let's listen in.
That has worked for us, developed here, worked for us for many years, but it doesn't happen instantaneously. So we have to call in units. We have to meet at a certain location. They get the information they need to operate in the environment, and then they go and they take care of business. And so that takes a little bit of time for.
I haven't seen any business being taken care of there, Jim.
Is pretty much textbook. So while we'd love to be able to say,
I'd like to see that textbook.
In seconds or minutes, and the reality
that must be a new one.
Situation of civil unrest, we got to do it right. We got to do it safely for everybody involved.
Hold on. Go one at a time, please, and let's identify name and outlet.
Vector with Univision Chief. We have seen two kinds of groups, at least from Friday, Saturday, and today that have been working. the community that is enraged and they're not happy with the actions of ICE, and then the community that loots and attacks and destroys our city. What would be your direct message to both groups?
Yeah, to the people who are not happy with the fact that ICE is in the community doing what ICE does, you know, I respect ICE for being a fellow law enforcement agency. They have their mission. They have their what they have to do. We don't engage in that activity, but again, we can't preclude them from doing that. They have every right to do that. I ask people in the community to trust the LAPD, that we're not there for that purpose, and that if they have something they need us to be able to address, we're there for them. As far as the big picture of what can I recommend they do or not do, that's something, it's a federal issue, and the federal authorities have the right to be able to do what they're doing. As far as people worried about the violence.
We got some action going on now. Let's get out of this press conference, Channel 7. We don't need to hear Jim McDonald rambling on a bunch of BS. He takes care of business. Obviously, he's not taking care of business. I can speak from authority. I'm retired LA Sheriff Sergeant Cliff Yates. Been there, done that on the streets of LA. 30 years. Enough of mustering and gathering up at the corner, getting ready to, confront nothing, I guess. Listen, CHP cars are already burned up and damaged. People are ripping signs out of the streets, throwing them off the overpass of the 110 freeway onto California Highway Patrol cars, apparently with impunity, as I don't see anybody going to the jail as they are throwing incendiary devices at these unoccupied CHP cars. And now we got some more damage going on. We need to break out. What are they doing with that car?
And throwing them at officers. We've had liquid of who knows what description thrown at officers. There's no limit to what they're doing to our officers. And again, as I mentioned in my statement, I can't thank our folks enough and our partner agency police officials for going out there and taking care of the community and trying to be able to put themselves between the threat and
I don't see you taking care of the community, Jim. I don't know what you're talking about.
These past couple of nights, we've seen it at a level that I think
it's probably
every good person.
Going to be getting dark soon there in L.A. 11:17 here on the East Coast, and so 8:17 there in L.A. I see dusk is approaching. It's getting a little bit darker.
It's an interesting question, because I would have said that we could handle this. I believe that we would have gone through a number of steps before we'd have deployed the National Guard or requested deployment of the National Guard. We would normally go to 50% deployment to handle radio calls and do the business of policing, and everybody else would be focused on the initial problem. Beyond that, then we would request through the sheriff mutual aid, and that would bring in members of the 44 other police departments in LA County, as well as the
why aren't you doing that, Jim? Obviously, look, we got a lot of police cars down there gathering while people are throwing chunks of concrete off the 110 freeway overpass onto CHP cars, damaging, ripping signs out of the street, blocking traffic for the hardworking citizens who are trying to freely use the public streets that they have paid taxes to use, and now they're not allowed to drive freely in and around downtown LA because people are blocking traffic under the banner of protesting. Well, you know what? Legal protesting does not involve blocking traffic and violating the law of the land, which is what's happening here.
I'd say we wouldn't have been there yet. Looking at the violence tonight, I think we got to make a reassessment.
Yeah, I think you got to make a reassessment, Jim. Yeah, you do.
I'd say very little, other than we had a conference call this afternoon. There aren't a whole lot of soldiers in place at this time. They're still incoming. But the people who are here, they're tremendous Americans here trying to do, they provide their service, doing the task that they're charged with. Our relationship has been tremendous overall with the National Guard. We worked right alongside them for 5 months during the Palisades fire. They were there every day in the beginning in large numbers, and then that narrowed down before they demobilized. But the relationship is overall tremendous. We're very, very good partners with them, and I hope they feel the same about us.
And when you look at the demonstrators who are people from the community who are upset about the immigration raids, families being broken up, deportations happening, do you feel any sense of kinship with them, or about this situation, or do you see that there is need for more law enforcement and for more immigration enforcement in Los Angeles?
I think, the federal agents are enforcing federal immigration.
All right,
law,
everybody.
which is
That's
their
going to be
right,
the end of my
and they
coverage.
can have their
Thanks for
personal
checking in.
on to what
Keep an
level
eye on this
we
tonight,
should
because when it
be
gets dark, I
those kind of
think
things. I won't take a position
it's
on
going
that
to
because
be
really that's not our
an
focus, it's not our
escalation.
job.
Let me know
But
what you think.
when I look at the people who are out there doing the violence.